Hey, well, first of all, welcome to everybody that's on the call who's just joined. Nice to see you all here, but massive welcome to Sophie. Thank you so much for joining us. I know Andy's already said that, but it means a lot to us. Where are you coming from today? Are you at home?
I'm at home at the moment, and I'm back as soon as I've done this. Yes.
Oh, nice. Right, so I guess you're a massive celebrity anyway. We've all heard of you, which is pretty cool. I'm really excited. But could you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are? You're a broadcaster, journalist. Could you tell us a little bit about the story, school, university? Well, what took you from A to B to where you are now?
I never ever meant to be on television. That was not in my game plan at all. I went to school in London. I was interested in sort of working in the media from the age of about 15 or 16, and I did some work experience on various programs, including Watchdog, which I later went on to present, which was very weird, full circle. But I always wanted to work behind the scenes, and I did languages at university. I'm a firm believer in people, even people who want to end up as on TV or interviewing or whatever as a journalist. I'm a firm believer in always doing what you want to do, not studying the media, studying the outside world. And so I went off and did languages at Manchester University. And after that, I went to City University and did a broadcast sort of postgraduate in journalism. So it was just a 1-year, very practical course. And then then got onto the BBC trainee scheme. And I have been there ever since. And that is a very long time ago. It is extraordinary. I honestly don't feel quite as old as I am. I'm 53. And I have been there for 30 years this year. I can't believe it. But anyway, it has been amazing.
What's your secret? You look fantastic.
Running. Anyway, so I have been there a very long time. I was a trainee, and I was, believe it or not, very shy at school, at university. So the notion back then that I would ever end up going on TV night after night after night in front of millions of people was quite absurd. I couldn't even go on a stage in front of my school friends. And so I started off as a producer, and I worked behind the scenes, and I worked in Brussels, and then I kind of got randomly asked. I was doing a bit of reporting, and I ended up working where you are, I think, in Yorkshire, on Look North. Presented that, terrified the life out of me. Yeah, scared the life out of me. And I thought, I can't do this. I don't like this. I was in my late 20s, and I sort of stuck with it. And Breakfast took me on, and I did Breakfast for 5 years, and then I've been doing the 6 and the 10 and the 1 ever since.
Wow. So, I reckon like lots of people get nervous, so you wouldn't have been alone there, but do you find that you had any strategies to sort of help you get over the nerves, or no?
You still get nervous now. And actually David Dimbleby, who is a legend, and he always says to me, if the minute you don't get nervous, you don't do a good job. So I get less nervous, I suppose, doing the bulletins day in, day out. I'm used to doing it, but you still have an edge. You've got to have the adrenaline. And I always find that if I don't have that adrenaline, that's when I mess up, or I get it wrong. You have to be on the edge always, because the minute you relax into it, then it's not, you're kind of, you don't care as much, I guess.
I guess that's quite similar actually to being like on a rowing start line. You're always nervous, and in fact is learning to accept those nerves are good, and that's what's going to help you.
I'm always nervous. I go and do parkrun every weekend. I'm nervous when I start a parkrun, and it really doesn't matter. But I
love parkrun. I absolutely love it. Yeah. Do you do the same one every week, or do you do a little tour around London?
I've got one quite close to me here, and I've got another one in Richmond Park, which is the first one I did, and I kind of go between the two really.
Richmond Park's got all those lovely deer, doesn't it?
Yeah, and quite a lot of hills as well. It's quite you're running uphill for the last mile, so it's not great on your times.
I can't imagine it's all that, because you've done the marathon des Sables. Sorry, I couldn't help but bring this up because I'm a huge fan of the marathon. I like watching it. I don't think I could ever contemplate doing it. But you did the marathon des Sables, which for anyone who doesn't know, in fact, Sophie, you could probably explain it better, but it's a serious feat. That is one of the most insane endurance events in the world. If you guys think Race the Thames is difficult, Sophie basically did Race the Thames on her own in a desert.
It was extraordinary. It's 155 miles across the Sahara Desert, carrying everything you need to survive, except for your tent. They give you a tent. I think that's all they give you. They give you a tent, and they hand you water every 6 miles, because you just obviously can't carry a week's worth of water. But all your food, all your bedding, all your clothes, everything you need for a week, you carry on your back, and you run across the Sahara Desert, and you run 20 miles a day. So it's always a limited period. So you run 20 miles a day really. They call it 6 marathons in 5 days. And then you camp, you're in a camp overnight, you keep moving. But again, that was one of those things I was so convinced I was not going to be able to do it, but by the time I'd signed up 18 months before I went. And about 2 weeks before I went, I just thought, I was so frightened, I was so scared. I told no one. I mean, my family obviously knew and a few close friends, but I didn't tell anyone. And I just thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm going to fail. I'm just going to. So I then went into the sort of mode, okay, I'm going to go and do one day. I'll get to the end of one day, and at least I've been and I'll have had a go. And I won't be able to do any more than that. And then I got there, and I got to the end of day one, and I thought, actually, I feel all right. I'll try day two. And I was in a tent with all these people, and they kept saying to me, come on, now you must believe you can do it. And I couldn't say that I could do it until I got to the end, until I made the finish line, at which point I burst into tears. But it's a very good lesson in life, I thought. It's really taught me a lot, that, because it taught me. It was really hard, and it was really hot. It got up to sort of 50 degrees. And, bearing in mind, when I did my first marathon, it was 21 degrees in London, and I blacked out because I got too hot. So I kind of, it was a bit of a gap. Anyway, I got to the end of that, and I came away thinking, I thought I couldn't do that. I seriously thought I couldn't do it. And I did it. And I just thought, your body is so much stronger than your mind thinks. And your mind actually, whatever you're doing, whether I'm doing park run or a marathon or a half marathon or the Marathon des Sables, or even just like I went running this morning for 5 miles, my head is always going, I'm too tired, my legs hurt, I can't do it. But actually the reality is you can do it. It's often your head that's telling you can't, and your body can do it.
Do you think so just based off that, do you have any further tips for the Race the Thames people? Because you've got, as you say, you probably just putting one step in front of the others, one foot in front, taking it one step at a time mainly. But is there any other tips you might have based off of your experience as a runner?
My experience, I started running really late, or relatively late. I did a half marathon when I was 38, and I did my first marathon when I was 42. So the fact that you're sitting there saying I could never do a marathon, I was like you. I said, there's no way on earth I could do a marathon. And I did one, and it was a disaster. It wasn't a disaster, but I collapsed, and it took me 6.5 hours to do it, basically, because I had 2 hours with St. John Ambulance. And then the next year I went back and I did it again. But what I've discovered, in the 10 years that I've been running marathons, is I'm now faster and fitter than I was when I was 42. I'm much faster than I was then. I'm much stronger. And I never thought that would be a thing. And I think anyone who's, doing what you're doing now, and racing the Thames and doing that distance, and it's a long way. Anybody who's doing that, I think what you can, by stepping up to a challenge, by having a challenge, it can show you what you're capable of. And I always think signing up for, people always say to me, I can't run, I can't do this. And I always say, just sign up for something, do a 5K or a 10K or whatever level you're at, and just push yourself that little bit further, and you'll be amazed at what you can do.
Oh, that's such a great message. Thank you, Sophie. I'm going to feel, you never know, I might sign up for the Marathon des Sables yet.
I think you should definitely sign up for a marathon. Have you done a marathon?
Not yet. I've done the half marathon. I did the Great North Run, which I loved. Have you done that one?
I've done it lots of times. Love the Great North Run.
It's so good, isn't it? It's like you can have a roast dinner halfway down the course.
Yeah, well, that's what I did. That was my first half marathon, and I got to the end of that, and I stood there and I thought, there's no way on earth I will ever be able to turn around and do it again. And actually, I discovered I could. So you can do a lot more than you think you can.
You never know. Well, Andy's just popping into the chat. Does anybody have any questions for Sophie?
I've got one. I'll kick off with a little one. So Sophie, I know you're a secret rower as well. Do a little bit on the Thames every now and again. Maybe in a while, but I know you know a bit about LYR and what we do, and obviously the rowing you've done. It'd be great to hear your thoughts on the sport in general, with your perspective of being runner in that sort of environment. yeah, just sort of tell people on Race the Thames sort of the wider sort of ideas around rowing.
I thought so I came to rowing very late, and that was through the BBC, and my first experience of rowing was being put in a boat with James Cracknell in a race. Can you imagine anything worse? James Cracknell, who's like, I have to win this, and I was in a boat with him. And we raced on the Thames. I think it was for, what was it? It was Sport Relief or something. It must have been Sport Relief. And we raced on the Thames from Putney to Hammersmith. And I didn't realise quite how frightening rowing can be at pace, because I caught a crab. Can you imagine, on the finish line? And I'm in Cracknell's boat and I catch the crab and I think we actually lost the race. I think it was my fault. I felt mortified. But I mean, the rowing is brilliant because it's a team sport, isn't it? I mean, rowing is you know, it obviously is a very bonding experience, whereas running, people think running is solitary. I don't find it solitary at all. It's I go out with lots of friends. It's a really social, it can be really social. But I think rowing is a different level. And it's also, you know, the Thames is something I love. I was born very near it. I've grown up on the Thames. I've always lived near the Thames. And I think just being out on the river is spectacular.
Yeah, no, well, I definitely agree with you on that. It's I've managed to have the privilege of rowing on a fair few stretches, yeah, no, it's got some great features. So,
can I ask a random question?
Go for it, Lawrence.
Nothing to do with fitness or anything like that. Years ago, I saw you on a program with Susanna and Trini. How did you find that?
Oh my God. Oh my God. That program, that was What Not to Wear on the Red Carpet. Oh yeah. Yes, that was, that was literally, I just started on the 6 o'clock news. I'd been on TV for a while, I suppose. And as I said before, it's not really my thing. And I've got a lot more confident. I put a lot of that down to sport, actually, but I've got a lot more confident over the years. I don't really mind so much. But at that point, I just felt so self-conscious. I was about 30, 31. And Trini and Susanna prodded and poked me, and it was all about what I was wearing. And they dressed me up in this bright pink dress, which I'd never wear ever. I wanted the black one, and they were like, "No, you're getting the pink one," and made me walk down a red carpet. And yes, it was interesting. They're brilliant. They are brilliant. They were absolutely fantastic.
I did actually see the show.
Oh my God, my kids weren't even born then. One day I know they're going to see it. They haven't seen it, and they'll be mortified. They're teenagers now. I think they'd be absolutely horrified.
Well, you came back the upper end.
I survived. That was the main thing.
Thank you for that.
Pleasure.
I've got a question, just very quickly, Sophie. I just wondered, given, you know, as you talk about your tenure at the BBC and being, you know, so prominent on, you know, let's say 1, 6 and 10. And I just wondered, in terms of the guests, and I know you've had many different interviews, you've interviewed so many different people, if there was one in particular that was particularly memorable or interesting, or really, I guess what I'm asking you is, and I'm sure that's way down the line, you know, one day when you do retire, you know, might there be one that might stick out in your mind, one person that you've had a conversation with, whether it be, you know, directly interviewing or at any point in your career, really?
It's really hard. It's sort of like asking what your best book is. I find you meet so many interesting people, and I have done over the years. And you know, this job, the extraordinary thing about this job is it opens so many doors. So you find yourself in extraordinary places all the time. Well, not all the time, but a lot of the time. You could like, I can't believe, you know, I've done documentaries where I followed the Queen around. I was just like, wow. I'm here. You know, obviously I wasn't that close, but it was, you know, those kind of things. I think it's the people who aren't famous or aren't well known, or the sort of everyday stories. You know, the extraordinary people that I talk to or have talked to in the past who have amazing stories to tell. And who kind of appear and then disappear again, and those are the sort of people who strike me, who leave their mark, rather than the most obvious. But I mean, something, you know, I've literally interviewed people, prime ministers to Dolly Parton.
Wow.
The scale is enormous, but I don't think I can really pick out. I think I can never pick out one.
That's totally fair. I think maybe the flip side of that as well, because another thing I was interested in was sort of your career sort of moving forward from this point now. You've spoken about how much you've done, how many different people you've spoken to, whether it be the Queen, whether it be Dolly Parton, all those everyday stories, all the different interviews, everything that it's encompassed, Trini and Susanna, and so much more, obviously, besides. Is there anything that you haven't done yet? Is there anything that you sort of aspire to accomplish in terms of, being a broadcaster, being a journalist, but also just maybe more generally than that, in terms of,
I want to write a book. I'll never do it, but I'd like to write.
Oh, wow. Really?
I have visions. I keep being asked to write a book about running, and I literally sit there and think, okay, I'm going to write a book. And I keep thinking I must do it. And this publisher has talked to me about 3 times over the years. He's saying, come on, do it. And I can't actually sit down and do it. I have visions of sitting in a little cottage looking at the sea with my computer, writing and just producing this amazing book. Although when I told my mum that I was thinking of doing this, my mum looked at me and said, oh, okay, darling. Wouldn't you like to write something people will actually read?
Aww.
It's a very supportive mother thing. Anyway.
It's about running, I'd read it, by the way.
Okay, all right.
I'd write it.
I'll write it for you. No, I would like to write a book because I like writing, but I don't know. I'm very lucky. The job I have now is fantastic, and it allows me to do all kinds of things, just the bulletins, and then I do other things on top of it, and documentaries and the big events, and I feel very, very lucky to be where I am now. So I don't have any great grand aspirations to be going anywhere else.
I've another question just quickly to finish off. One of the things that we are really targeting right now at London Youth Rowing is getting young girls into sport. You said that you came to running later in life. Do you think, looking back into your time back at school, why didn't you get into sport then? What might have persuaded you? Anything along those lines? I
did when I was at school at the end. I didn't until I was 16. And then from about when I was 16 to 17, I did do running at school. I was suddenly encouraged to do a track, but not for I didn't push very hard. I was quite fast, but I didn't do very much of it. I did diving, believe it or not, springboard diving, like the sort of Tom Daly kind of diving, and actually ended up, I was on a poolside with a guy called Jay, who I knew and was there 5 days a week, day in, day out. And it was only 20 years later, he had loads of black curly hair, and it was only 20 years later that I discovered that Jay was actually also called Jason Statham, the Hollywood actor now, was the bloke that spent a year poolside. Anyway, so I did diving for a year then, and then completely quit. I did nothing. I did no sport whatsoever. And I think at school, we weren't really encouraged. My teenage daughters now do a lot of sport at school and are encouraged to do so. I wasn't encouraged. It just wasn't. I don't know why, but it was a long time ago and we weren't encouraged. But I wish I'd been encouraged, and I wish I'd kept going in my 20s, because it was literally, 18 years after I left school, I got into sport again. And I think it's so good for your head. And I think it's, for me still, sport is just going off for a run, just clears my head. If I've got a difficult day at work or I've got stressful stuff happening, I go off and I just go and run, and it clears my head. And it also it does make you feel stronger. I think it's really empowering. I do think sport is really empowering. And I just wish I'd done more of it when I was in my 20s, because I think it's really for your mental health, it's really important as well.
Thank you so much for that, Sophie. That's fantastic. And I hope you have a great rest of your day at work. I don't know if anybody else has got any more questions they want to ask, but I know that Sophie's nearly got to go. But thank you for giving us some of your lunchtime.
Not at all. I look forward to hearing your marathon time when you've done your...
Yeah.
That's it. The challenge has been set.
I did get some new trainers for my birthday, which was just the other day.
So, no excuse.
Excuse. It's in the cards for me now.
Well, Sophie, thank you so much for that. I owe you. It's been a privilege to have you here, and I can't thank you enough for coming on. So, right, well, look, we'll let you get away. We'll stay on and we'll crack on with our next bit. But thank you so much.
Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie.
Right.
Awesome.
So,
Well, firstly, thank you both for taking your time to kind of come and join us, have a chat. And also, I know obviously you've got 2 teams entered into Race The Thames, which is great. So I guess to start with, it'd be really good just to kind of hear a bit about yourselves, a bit about XLP and kind of what your goals are, because I think they're quite closely aligned with our kind of beliefs and goals at LYR. So it'd be quite good to kind of hear from you what it is you do and what you want to do.
Yeah, so I'm Tom. I am the marketing and communications manager at XLP. And before that, I did the youth work in Lewisham for about 5-6 years. XLP's been around for 25, 26 years. We started in 1996. And we started because a kid got stabbed in Peckham, and there was a youth worker that was in the area that was just motivated to want to do something about that. And he started XLP, which stands for the XL Project, as in we want young people to excel. It's a very name born of the 90s. And we want to engage in long-term relationships that empower young people from backgrounds where there's not much opportunity for them. And we do that in lots of ways. We run a communities project with a double-decker bus that's fitted out as a mobile youth centre. We do mentoring with young people. We help young people find work. We go into schools, and then we run the sports programme, which I'll let Ash talk about because he's much more involved in that than I.
Sounds amazing.
Hi guys, I'm Ash. I've been at XLP for just under a year. And my experience from XLP so far has been, it's just an opportunity that's there for young people. And I feel like, although I wasn't here for a long time before, well, being a part of the project for a long time before I got my job with XLP, it was just a sign of how XLP is just there for regardless of who you are and where you come from and how long you've been a part of the program. So yeah, that's how I come across my job, just from being a part of one of the programs. But the XLP sports projects we run in multiple different locations, offering sports sessions in safe environments. We also have a gym session or multiple gym sessions at Stratford Hub, where we have a gym where we do one-to-ones. We do gym sessions for females only. We offer programs, so like we'll design a program for a young person, allow them to go on with it. Half terms, we do like loads of gym challenges. As you know, we just done this challenge. A while ago, we did the cycle to Wales, which was really good. But yeah, we just offer loads of opportunities to young people to push them on. And it's a tool that we use to engage with young people and try to push them further within themselves. So like pushing them onto the mentoring, pushing them onto young leaders and stuff like that. So yeah, great product.
Obviously it ties in kind of, I guess, really closely with what we do with LYR in terms of getting young people into sport, especially people that wouldn't ever think about rowing, and getting them into rowing and getting them excited about that impact that can have on kind of their lives, and giving them those skills to kind of progress, which is obviously very similar to what you do. In terms of the fundraising side of Race The Thames, is there kind of anything particular that you're kind of raising money for what you're doing, or is it just generally to support your programs?
Because we're charity, we'll kind of try and grab any money we can get from anywhere that supports something that we do. So probably, we're not specifically raising towards this. For Race The Thames, we're trying to raise money towards our sports projects, sort of specifically, rather than anything else that XLP does. But yeah, because we're charity funded, it's kind of whatever we can get a lot of the time.
I completely understand that. So obviously, I know you've got 2 teams that you've entered, and I've kind of seen a couple of emails ping around that you've been kind of getting started and getting a good amount of distance done. Kind of, is it rowing and cycling you've been doing? Is that right?
Yeah, so we cycled and rode. I believe we covered 100 and... Ooh, just bear with me. I have it written down here.
That's right. I've got it in your email somewhere. I can, if you don't know, I can probably look it up for you.
Yeah, so we covered 130k, 30 kilometers rowing, and 378 cycling.
Wow, that's good going. And how did the so is that kind of a mixture of kind of you as kind of coaches and staff and support workers and young people, or is it just the young people you work with?
Yeah, so we had a few coaches there. We always try and get involved in any challenge, obviously, just to set an example and help carry the team through and just be like good role models within it. But yeah, we have a lot of great young people that are always willing for like up for all these sort of challenges, which is amazing.
Do you have any kind of real, I guess it's a lot of distance covering, not much time. Did you have any kind of real standout performances from any of the young people? Did anyone kind of go really above and beyond?
Yeah, we always get a few that always want to push the boat out that extra bit and help cover in the distance where someone else may have struggled. So I feel like the team that we always put together is always a great team. So if someone's struggling, there's always someone that's willing there to help and push them forward or do that little bit extra just to get the team through.
Oh, nice. In terms of, I guess, the coaching staff that took part, then any kind of rivalry, any competition? Does it get a little bit competitive? I know we've kind of, when us as coaches at LYR, we might do a bit of sport occasionally. There's normally a little bit of a competitive side that creeps out every now and again.
Yeah, I believe there's always a bit of rivalry with especially with the sports team. Yeah, a lot of us like play football or do some type of sport, so there's always that competitive side to anything we do.
Yeah, I'm not. I went along and tried to get involved. I'm not that fit, and I did 6.5K on the rowing machine. I felt quite good with that, but that's the first I've ever done. But Ash was next to me, and he'd done about 11.5K at that point. We had a guy called Dylan in front of him who's about 18, maybe 19, and they're going right, fastest to 100, fastest to 100 meters, fastest to 100 meters. I've got 90 more, 80 more, 70 more. So the whole time they were just shouting at each other of like who can get there quicker, who can get to. I think they were trying to do 13K in one sitting, and they were trying to get to that point quicker than the other ones.
That's pretty good going. It's a long time to have your bum on the seat on the rowing machine and working hard. So well done. I guess going back to the money side of it, and do you kind of have a goal you're trying to hit? Kind of, if we've got people that are watching this that are kind of wanting to support other charities as well as LYR, have you got, I guess, a little bit of a spiel about what you want to raise?
We initially,
that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, no, sorry. Yeah, we initially set up a target for £400, but we kind of felt like we'd want like £100 basically pays for one young person to kind of go through all of what we do with XLP in a year. And so if we got £400 in, for example, that's 4 young people that don't have to pay to do anything with XLP, because everything we offer is free to young people. So we thought, well, if we set ourselves a target of £1,000, that's 10 young people that can do everything that XLP can do with them for a year.
That's amazing. Kind of, I guess, when you break numbers down like that and you kind of actually look at what that amount of money pays for, it makes it sound really good value, doesn't it? And really worthwhile. You think £100 isn't the most amount of money in the world, and the impact that can have is huge.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if in the areas that we work in, where there's not a lot of opportunity and maybe sort of low income families, £100 goes a lot further for in that kind of environment, I think.
Oh yeah, completely. I definitely agree. So I guess going back to the competitive side of Race The Thames and wanting to get a bit of distance in, have you got any other teams or other charities you kind of know or work with closely that are also taking part, that you kind of maybe got a little bit of friendly rivalry with?
No, I don't. I didn't see anything like that. Sorry, that's not the answer.
That's right.
Not the answer you want me to give. Sorry.
Sorry. Well, maybe we can start a little bit of a rowing competition between you and some of the LYR groups. Get some more competition going on. Andy, did I see that you kind of had your hand up wanting to ask a question?
Yeah, I'd love to just ask, we all know the power of sport for young people, especially for those who don't get access to it. It sounds like you guys try a lot of different sports, and this might be your first rowing kind of venture. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on kind of the different sports, how they interact with different people, and how you use them. And if there's one sport in particular that works particularly well, I'm definitely not fishing for a rowing reference there. Just anything. I'd love to hear a bit more about, team sports, individual sports, and how you work with those different options.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what would be the best one. Obviously, I think obviously for us, it's always been an engagement from football, or since I've been there, it's always been my engagement with young people and then setting the challenges from there. So like the cycle to Wales, or doing a bike ride to every stadium in London. It's just, we set the challenge, and the young people always just seem to be up for any sort of challenge that we do, regardless of the sport. And I think as well, what they most appreciate is the fact that we're actually spending time with them to go out and do something with them for the day, regardless of the challenge.
Yeah, I think football is something that is very easily accessible in a lot of places. And so I think that's why a lot of people in London play football. Probably a lot of people generally play football is because you just need a ball and a wall sometimes. And that does make it easier for us to engage in football. But Ash said, we've got our gym session. A lot of kids have bikes, but they don't have road bikes, and they definitely don't ride them more than just around their area. So when we've done stuff like, I've done the football stadium cycle, Ash cycled to Wales from London, and we've done fencing and things with young people too. I think it's just trying to use fitness as a way to engage, to teach determination, to teach teamwork. To give them sort of some soft skills that would help them navigate other problems that they might face in their life.
Yeah, no, it's great. And it's interesting that you use such a different mix of sports to sort of give them those opportunities. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it just makes a massive difference, isn't it? And that little kind of spending time with people and actually just caring about what you're doing with other people makes a massive difference to people, doesn't it? And kind of has a real big kind of positive benefit. Bobby, did you kind of have a question you want to ask? I can see your hand up.
Yeah, I was just interested to obviously, like you said there, football is a big hook, isn't it, to get people involved. And you've mentioned cycling and stuff. It's interesting to sort of hear about what directions people sort of take, and you mentioned about building life skills and stuff like that, and that's what we look to do too in the stuff we do with young people. But obviously not mentioning any names maybe, but do you have any stories that really stand out for you in the work that you've done, or individuals who sometimes as a coach you get that one person that really sticks with you, is there anything like that for you guys?
Yeah, we have a guy called Taz. He grew up in, I can use his name because he works for us. He works for us now. His story, when he was 12, he grew up in Canning Town kind of area, and was mugged by a large group of teenage boys at knife point. Made him very scared, didn't really want to leave kind of his area. Walking home from school one day, he saw XLP staff in a football cage, and he really got into football, and kind of came along to all of our sessions, and he engaged with one of our youth workers, a guy called Stephen, who's also still with us. And Taz and Stephen sort of formed a very strong sort of bond just through hanging out with each other over a long period of time. Taz is now early 20s. He worked in the sports project for a bit, and now he works in schools work. But his whole way into XLP was seeing the football and feeling like that was the safe place in his area, where his area didn't feel safe before.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's definitely interesting hearing about like how when you have such an impact on somebody's life, they can, you know, want to sort of give back in that sort of way. You mentioned earlier as well, sorry, Owen, about the sort of girls only stuff that you guys do. And yeah, just be interesting to hear a little bit more about how you look to engage more females, and yeah, just sort of stuff like that really.
So with our gym project, we have we run 2 gym sessions every week. We get one of our there's someone called Rosie who works with us. She's very much interested in the gym and stuff like that, so she comes every week to help out. So we kind of use her as a way to build that extra special connection with the girls. And what we're working on at the moment is actually forming a gym session just for girls weekly, where they can earn themselves like if they come to so many sessions, we will buy them this gym equipment or this gym equipment. And in previous half terms, what we've also done is done a gym day just for girls, and we will go through like diet, we've gave them like loads of bands and stuff, as you know, like girls tend to use a lot of bands during their workouts. So we'd go through how we use them, what muscle groups it works on, and that sort of stuff. And then after that, we then took them out shopping and we brought them all like gym outfits. So they're just ways that we've used to connect with them and get them involved in the gym sessions and the projects and staying active.
That's really cool. And it's good that you know, it's about the individuals that you're working with, and yeah, it's interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think definitely, and I know it's something, obviously, as Bobby said, it's something we're kind of looking at doing more of as well, and getting those people that wouldn't normally use sport into sport is just a massive win, isn't it? So I guess as a kind of a bit of a finish up, unless anyone else has got loads of real kind of burning questions they want to chuck at you.
I haven't got a burning question. I just wanted to answer one question because I had a chance to look at your website, but I didn't see the video. It's about the Impact Awards that you received in 2020.
Yeah.
Could you share a bit of that with us, please?
Yeah, so we were nominated for that, for the London Impact Awards. It was based around how we use young people to help us guide the vision of our charity. That's why we kind of won that Impact Award. So it's like the Impact Award for Youth Voice. We've got we call them our Youth Advisory Board, but we've got a number of young people who've been with XLP for a while, mostly sort of since they were like kind of 12 years old, and now they're sort of 17, 18, 19. And we have them help us shape what our charity looks like. And so whenever we interview people to work with us, we'll have at least one of them in the interview panel. And when we sit down with our trustees, we'll have some of them around in those meetings just to kind of give that youth voice, to kind of make sure that we actually are doing what we set out to do, which is empower young people's voices. Oh, so you're on mute.
I just noticed. Thanks for sharing. I'll have a little look at the video after as well. That's really cool. So do you have last question, do you have them do forums and stuff like that, little youth forums, or is that something?
Yeah, we do. We think it's, oh, my voice cracked. We think it's important that that young people know people outside of their area. I think sometimes just growing up in an area, you just get told, this is my postcode, this is my area, don't talk to anybody outside of that. We know that we want to facilitate good conversations between young people, with young people not from their area. And so we usually use our Stratford hub to kind of do that sort of stuff, and we'll invite young people in to talk about what do they think about these particular issues. We've got a music event coming up with a guy called DEE, who was part of the Newham Generals. Like years ago, because one of the guys that was in Newham Generals works for XLP, so he's got this link with DEE. And DEE is still in the music scene, and so we've invited young people to come and talk about how to become an artist, how to kind of hear advice from someone above them, who's already done that journey. And they'll all be young people from sort of loads of different areas kind of coming and talking and sharing about their views.
That's brilliant that you're able to get the young people from different areas in the same environment. One of the reasons why I asked the question, because some of the things that we're in the process of doing with schools, like getting forums for young people and trying to figure a way in how we can get that done in environments. And teams was one of the things I was thinking of first initially, to get them interacting with each other on teams and then take it from there. I know it's slightly obviously different with schools. You'll have teachers with them and being more responsible, whereas youth clubs environments, obviously it's, if you're coming outside of your area, it's a bit more, for want of a better word, risky for some of them. Yeah.
You have to facilitate an environment where they can quickly latch on to something they've got in common. I think like people find that quite quickly. It's like when you go on holiday outside the country and you meet someone and they're from London, say, and you're like, oh, I'm from London, which I don't walk around the streets in Lewisham and go, oh, you're from Lewisham, I'm from Lewisham, like it's pointless. But when you're abroad, you do. And so it's facilitating an environment where you can find that common ground quickly. And then once they realise they've got something in common, everything else tends to flow pretty smoothly from there.
Thanks for that, Tom. Really cool.
This kind of leads, actually, I was going to do a little bit of a LYR plug, and then I had kind of one last question, that is, so obviously you've got some people on rowing machines, and actually seems some of them have done pretty well on rowing machines. So coming up soon, we have a kind of a national junior indoor rowing competition, which is going to be virtual this year. So if you've got any young people that are kind of really stood out and kind of want to be involved in something a little bit bigger and maybe see actually how good they are against some rowing clubs and maybe put some posh rowing clubs to shame, then feel free to get in touch, and we can maybe sort out getting you all involved and getting some of your young people involved with that as well.
What's the age range on that?
So it is under 18.
Under 18. Sometimes
so secondary school age.
It depends on who you talk to. Sometimes young people, if you talk to like an old man, young people means 27, and so I just want to work out. Yeah, under 18. Nice, thank you. I've written that down.
And they don't all have to be brilliant. They could just be young people who just want to participate and test themselves and challenge themselves. But we know you guys from what we're hearing from you that you've obviously got a lot of young people there who want to push and challenge themselves. So either one we'll accept.
Nice.
And then I guess the last question I had was, if you we've spoken a lot about what you do as a charity and the absolutely amazing work you do. If you kind of had to narrow it down to one thing that you think makes the biggest impact in the lives of young people, what would you say it was?
Consistency. Turning up each week and just being there, regardless of whether it's for like the sports team, whether it's raining outside. Like consistently, we turn up. We're there. We'll do what we can for them, regardless of the situation. So yeah, I think consistency is probably the word for us.
Yeah, 100%. I think we work with a lot of people who've got absent fathers, absent mothers, absent teachers, absent social workers. If we can be non-absent youth workers, I think it makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, amazing. And I fully agree. I think if you're going to make a difference to young people, you've got to commit to it. You can't, it's not something you can do half-heartedly. But no, great chatting to you both. And yeah, what you do sounds absolutely incredible. So it'd be good to kind of maybe pair up and do a little bit of stuff with you again at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Anyone else had anything they want to ask before we kind of finish this off?
Hey, look, I think just a massive thank you. Tom and Ash, really appreciate you coming on. Owen, thanks for taking that interview. And look, obviously amazing work you guys do, and it would definitely be awesome to hook up at some point. We're active now on the Olympic Park. We've got a boat there, So maybe we can line up a couple of taster sessions or something to give you your students something a bit different to do. Yeah, no, let's talk about that. But in the meantime, yeah, how much of the distance do you have still left to do?
Ooh, Tom, do you know? I'm not too sure.
You've still got a few miles to go, I think, haven't you?
I think so. Yeah, I think we set out to do 3 times the length of the Thames on the bikes and 1 time the length, and then just the length on the rowing. And I don't know what the length is in my head. So
346.
346. So yeah, we still got a bit to go. Yeah. Ian Hiley will log that at one point. He's not the greatest with computers. he'll do it.
Cool. So we've actually got you down for the 72k challenge. Are you going to do the 346k, the big one?
Oh, whatever we signed up for is the one that we're going to do, probably.
I might have to move you to the full distance then. It sounds like you guys are up for it.
Well, yeah.
Cool. Well, look, appreciate your time today. We're going to continue chatting about the event. You're more than welcome to stay. However, appreciate you guys are busy. You've got lots on. So if you want to drop off, then feel free.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Cool. Really nice to see you guys. Thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Take care.
Right.
Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Ash.
Bye.